There's nothing worse than things not working out like they're supposed to. If you were to buy a new toaster, for example, and it immediately set your kitchen on fire, you'd probably be on the phone to Argos quicker than you can say burnt crumpets. After the fire brigade, that is. Please call the fire brigade first before you call Argos, if that ever happens. Jesus. When it occurs in a video game, it's equally frustrating. Not in a my new Russell Hobbs just burnt everything I love to the ground kind of way, but rather, I spent $50 dues on this piece of cack and it's lost all my save data, which, let's be honest, is probably just as bad. Glitches in video games can, however, provide an excellent source of entertainment on occasion, whether the rendering's gone awry and you're left with something out of your worst nightmares, or the physics have bugged out and launched your character into the sky, limbs all a-flailing. So, let's examine some of the silliest, shall we? I'm the only occasionally Buggy Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 most hilarious video game glitches. Number 10. Press X to Sean, Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain isn't a funny game. Well, it is, actually, but they didn't mean for it to be. The plot of the PS3 title focuses on Ethan, a father who has recently lost one of his sons in a car accident, and whose other son, Sean, has been kidnapped by the infamous origami killer. He's not having a very good time of it, to tell you the truth. At various points in the game, the player is prompted to call out for Sean, as Ethan frantically hunts for the wee young lad. As the story's ending unfolds, though, an unfortunate combination of button presses can result in a bug that has since become known as Press X to Sean. With every push of the X button, regardless of any other dialogue being spoken, Ethan rather unceremoniously yells, "Sean! Sean!" at anyone within earshot, which, though sometimes frustrating as it can impede the player's ability to complete QTEs, is absolutely hysterical when used to cut off other characters' emotional dialogue. Let's have a listen.
I'm afraid that's not possible.
There isn't an awful lot of levity in Heavy Rain, apart from people stumbling over constantly in QuickTime events, but this particular glitch will always give the player a chuckle after a long slog through some harrowing subject material trying to find... what's the kid's name again? Number 9. Giant Launching, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It's widely accepted among the giant fandom, yes, that is such a thing, we have jackets, that giants are real and incredibly big and unbelievably strong and very real. But the question remains as to whether they are so strapping that they have the ability to launch burly human beings several hundred feet into the air without breaking a sweat. The jury remains well and truly out on that one, which is why this wonderful feature in Skyrim gets a spot on our list. Some people say it's a glitch, others reckon it's genuinely intentional. Either way, it looks like a glitch, so it's staying in.
I'm going a million! I do like it!
If, whilst on your travels around the rim of sky, you happen to come across a pack of leery-looking giants, just be careful how close you get, or you might end up learning very quickly what it's like to be able to fly unassisted. Although not the only glitch in Skyrim by a long shot, this one is by far our favourite, if just for the sheer hilarity of seeing your unsuspecting character yeeted towards the heavens after getting on the wrong end of a giant's club. Now you know what it feels like to be me. Number 8. The Chair Train, Lord of the Rings Online. Walking. What a chore. I honestly don't know how that Frodo guy got all the way to Mount Doom and back without calling for at least one Uber, come on. But fear not, young Master Hobbit, because a minor bug in the MMORPG Lord of the Rings Online will make your rambling problems a thing of the past. After a long day of killing orcs and smoking pipe weed, you're probably going to not feel much like making the long trek all the way back to your hobbit hole. But if while sat on your lazy halfling bum you decide to follow another player rather than getting out of your chair in hot pursuit, you'll remain seated and simply zip along behind your target, free to enjoy the wonderful Middle-earth scenery without risk to your hairy little toesies. Not only is this a great way to avoid shelling out for expensive elvish loafers on the regular, but it also produces hysterical results as you shadow another player, floating ominously after them atop your chosen piece of furniture. What's more, if you've got a few friends who are up for some japes, you can end up with a fantastic chair train, which is honestly one of the funniest things you'll see this side of Gondor. Number 7. Teeny Tiny Player, Madden NFL 15. Long has it been thought by the TripleJump community that due to my small stature, there are few sports that I, Tiny Peter, can safely join in with. So it came as somewhat of a surprise to us when researching this video that there appears to be no minimum height required to play American football, at least not according to Madden NFL 15, anyway. If scoring digital touchdowns and hanging out with your favourite quarterbacks and wide receivers is your bag, you're probably already familiar with the Madden NFL series, as it allows players to become part of the highly violent and slightly terrifying sporting action, no matter their size. How inclusive. Eagle-eyed gamers having a go at Madden 2015's Madden Solo Challenge mode could often observe teeny tiny linebacker Christian Kirksey moseying about the pitch making plays, which wouldn't be all that funny for the actual real-life Kirksey, who stands at about 6'2" and weighs around 235 pounds. But it does look rather daft in-game, where the player is about 1/6 of the size of his teammates. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to buy myself some very small cleats. Number 6. Nightmare Faces, Assassin's Creed Unity. Of the multitudes of terrifying cinema and assorted media out there, Assassin's Creed probably isn't the series that springs to mind when you think of nightmare fuel. But oh boy, did we have a few sleepless nights after coming across one utterly terrifying glitch in the early builds of Assassin's Creed Unity. Whilst parkouring their way around the French Revolution, unfortunate PC players uncovered the bug which caused characters' faces to disappear, though worst of all, not in their entirety, leaving behind just the eyes and mouth. The resulting effect was so horrifying, it probably wouldn't have been out of place in the likes of the Resident Evil series or Silent Hill. Once players got over the initial shock of the nightmarish creations, naturally they screenshotted the phenomenon and took to the interweb to have a good old laugh at Ubisoft's expense. Attributed by the developer to an issue with 1 or 2 computer graphics cards, the bug was, sadly for us, quickly resolved. However, we thankfully still have the video evidence, so that we can all enjoy the absolute ridiculousness and deeply disturbing creepiness of this awful glitch. Just don't look it up right before bedtime. Trust me, it will haunt your dreams. Number 5. Shot to the Moon, Fallout 4. You know how it often goes. You're out in the wilderness with your trusty firearm at your side when what should cross your path but a tasty looking deer that's just crying out to be served up with a red wine reduction and Dauphinoise potatoes. You get him in your sights, take aim, and oops, you've rocketed yourself 40 feet into the air and subsequently fallen to your death. You bloody cabbage. No venison for you tonight. Far from the only glitch to befall the Fallout series, or indeed Bethesda games in general, see our earlier entry, this particular one is probably as chuckle-inducing as it is infuriating. Players found that when using the VATS system to take aim at an adversary, on occasion something would bug out, and rather than landing the perfect shot, they'd see their character launched into the sky, kind of a running theme with these games actually. Not only did this mean that your dinner had plenty of chance to escape, but because of the game's fall damage mechanics, sadly your days of wasteland survival came to an abrupt end. Oh well, at least you don't have to fire up the oven this evening, I guess. Number 4. Performance Anxiety, Star Wars Battlefront 2. As many men can attest, there's nothing worse than finally getting some alone time with the person you've been pursuing for a while, only to fail to perform at the crucial moment. No one knows more about this problem, however, than our force-using friends of Star Wars Battlefront 2, who seem to be having some trouble getting their weapons to stand proud on command. What? What do you mean demonetize? I'm talking about lightsabers. Anyway, slightly inappropriate double entendres aside, an unfortunate bug in the second Battlefront entry sees our poor Jedi having some difficulty getting their lightsabers to illuminate. This has absolutely no effect on the player's ability to actually play the game, being a purely aesthetic glitch, but what results is much hilarity as the Jedi run around with an unlit hilt, seemingly blocking attacks with naught but the power of the Force. And if you're on the attack, of course, your battle with the galaxy's most elegant weapon from a civilized age becomes more akin to a late-night drunken brawl down your local Rose and Crown. Oh, it's okay, Darth. It happens to a lot of men. You're probably just tired. Number 3. Creepy Babies, The Sims 4. Now, I'll be honest, I personally find all babies a bit creepy. The way they stare at you unblinkingly, their odd, super strong grip, the fact that they feel the need to just constantly shriek like a banshee. You don't think I have problems too, baby, huh? Learn to scream on the inside like the rest of us. But as if the prospect of parenting isn't terrifying enough, just imagine giving birth to this monstrosity. Talk about a face only a mother could love. This is no less than the third time an EA game has appeared in this list. God, it's almost as if they're a mega evil corporation with their sights firmly fixed on the profits and only the profits and not the quality of the product. And oh my, when they do glitches, they do them brilliantly. Poor Sims 4 players, hoping to enjoy a nice cuddle with their newborn, somehow unsuspectingly managed to spawn something that I doubt even John Carpenter could have dreamed up. After coming to terms with your praying mantis hybrid child though, you'll find they're pretty bloody funny to look at, especially when coupled with your Sim's completely unfazed reactions as they rock them to a hopefully eternal sleep. Now where's Kurt Russell? I need to borrow a flamethrower. Number 2. Crazy Wagon, Red Dead Redemption. I believe it was the Osmonds that sang about crazy horses back in the 70s, but those wild broncos ain't got nothing on Red Dead Redemption's whacked out wagon. It might just be me, but if I leave my horse and cart parked somewhere, I expect it to be in the same place I left it when I get back from my game of Texas Hold'em. What I don't want is for it to be bouncing around like it's got P. Diddy behind the wheel before zooming off into the sky, presumably for better prospects. I don't know, perhaps I'm expecting too much. But as Red Dead players have found, you can't keep a good wagon down, and that's presumably why they can be so often found lodged in people's roofs. Although moderately annoying if you've got somewhere to be, it's hard to deny the hilarity of watching your cart bounce across the Wild West landscape like it's had one too many tune-ups from the Pimp My Ride crew. Now the only thing left to do is to work out how you're going to get your horse down from those power lines. Jesus, John Bon Pony, how'd you get up there? And number 1, the whole darned game, WWE 2K20. Now some might say that WWE 2K20 is something of an easy target, as upon its release it received widespread criticism for being an ill-thought-out, buggy mess of a game. It's hard to believe this absolute rubbish came from the same publisher that brought us BioShock, Borderlands and Sid Meier's Pirates. The game's reputation unfortunately fully precedes it, however, so we couldn't not include it in a list of hilarious video game glitches. It really is a smorgasbord of unintentionally hilarious video game misery. Why not choose your favourite? From character models that just weirdly melt into one another, ropes that don't know what to do with themselves, wrestlers that seem to be having some sort of seizure, and many, many more. Whilst we do very much feel for the players who went out and spent their hard-earned cash on this utter garbage heap of a game, it's hard not to have a chuckle at least some of the physics faux pas that it commits. Fingers crossed that 2K games have learned their lesson and nothing like this ever sees the harsh light of day ever again. Then again, 2020's been so horrible we could probably do with another laugh. And that's our list, for now, but we'll almost certainly do a follow-up. So let us know in the comments below what other video game glitches had you bereft of ribs. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and if you want to support the things you enjoy, why not take a look at our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I've been Peter from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.